Welcome. Necromunda has been a highly requested subject for as long as I remember. Today we are finally diving headfirst into the grim dark of Necromunda, exploring its tides of power and corruption, and its history, brilliant and tragic. With this video, I attempted to provide a crash course into the entire stretch of Necromundan lore, hopefully providing a platform that we can use to branch into more granular topics. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly mention that you can find digital downloads of my wallpapers on my Ko-fi store linked below. Please also remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy videos like this one. You'll find links to everything, including the channel sponsors, in the description below. Thanks for bearing with me. Now, let's get started. In the 41st millennium, after 10,000 years of grinding stagnation, the Imperium of Man endures as a galactic empire that has but barely clung to its survival. This endurance was purchased at a terrible price, an era of cultural and technological backsliding so profound that the promise of a new age for mankind now exists only as a forgotten memory. Upon a million worlds, the great truth of the age is to forget the power of technology, science, progress and understanding. On none is this truth more brutally manifest than the Hive World of Necromunda, a world upon which the promise of mankind is not merely forgotten, but is rendered into ash and slag by the very industries that sustain the Imperium's faltering light. Hive worlds are the polluted, overburdened hearts of imperial industry. They are planets whose staggering output sates the insatiable logistical appetites of the Segmentum Solar's warfronts, yet they also stand as monuments to millennia of human folly. These worlds, designed to maximize the exploitation of both natural resources and manpower, are the decaying engines that drive the war machine of the 41st millennium. Founded long ago in the depths of the dark age of technology, their towering cities were once the pride of all mankind. Colossal urban sprawls and spires of unfathomable construction, relics of a forgotten era of achievement. Now, by the 41st millennium, these same monuments to a lost age bear the brutal scars of devastating ecological disasters, merciless alien invasions, and bitter wars of attrition. The surfaces of these worlds have become polluted wastelands. Their plains are ashen and barren, stripped by generations of relentless mining, while their oceans have been transformed into little more than chemical sludge. Within this paradigm of decay and production, Necromunda serves as a crucial industrial powerhouse. It is a vast powerhouse of industry, making thousands and thousands of different items for use throughout nearby planetary systems, its factories and refineries relentlessly churning out the material required by the Emperor's armies. From the highest spires to the deepest sump, the planet is a vast organism with a singular grinding purpose. This vast, impersonal industrial function is serviced by the teeming, brutalized lives of the billions who dwell within its hives, their existence defined by the very system they are born to serve. Stripped of the Imperium's glorious veneer, Necromunda presents a focused microcosm of the human condition. Here, in the convoluted underbellies and towering spires of its hive cities, the raw, unvarnished truth of existence is laid bare. Within these metal mountains, humanity is doomed by stagnation to repeat its cycles, and they exist to retell age-old stories that define human culture. They are theaters of glory and unquenchable ambition, but also of bitter sadness and unthinkable immoral horror. Tales of sacrifice play out in the same shadows that conceal humanity's darkest impulses. It is a world where heroism, in the classical sense, seems impossible, yet the fundamental nature of humanity persists, tormented and twisted, but unbroken. Heroes have no place within the blighted realm of House Helmar, and yet the human spirit endures. Tormented and twisted, it has survived, and even thrived, amongst the iron weeds of the ash-cursed planet. This is not the noble heroism espoused by imperial propaganda, but a reactive, predatory resilience forged in the crucible of a system that pits neighbor against neighbor. It is the courage found by men and women crushed beneath the feudal weight of the Imperium, who, with their faces pushed into the dust, find that the tenacious will to survive, and even to prosper, cannot be fully extinguished. This raw human struggle is not random, but is contained and channeled by the very societal framework that both fuels and confines it. The planet's harsh existence is defined not by random chaos, but by a structured and relentless struggle for survival and supremacy. This struggle is codified within a brutal system of urban feudalism, a grim echo of ancient Terran hierarchies and the ultimate socio-political manifestation of stagnation. It is a regression to a primitive power structure, because more enlightened forms of governance are a forgotten dream. On Necromunda, individuals pledge loyalty upwards through a complex web of families and clans, with all chains of fealty ultimately leading to the planetary governor, Lord Helmar. This system is self-regulating only in the most brutal Darwinian sense, as weaker clans seek the protection of stronger ones. In a world of finite resources and infinite ambition, where the relentless demand for production creates ever-increasing scarcity and pressure, rival clans inevitably clash. The constant feuding between warrior gangs has thus become a fundamental aspect of life on Necromunda, turning the lives of ordinary citizens to ashes in their wake. Ultimately, Necromunda is a reflection of the Imperium's grinding truth. Progress is forgotten, and the raw, unyielding struggle for supremacy within its ironclad hierarchies is all that remains, consuming the lives of its people as surely as its forges consume ore. The deepest annals of Necromunda's history are shrouded in the obscuring mists of time, its earliest truths lost to calamitous eras of technological backsliding and conflict. Founded long ago in the forgotten dark age of technology, the world's first chapters are an unreadable litany of progress and subsequent decline, its historical records having long since disappeared. This was a shrouded and violent era, a pre-imperial age from which Necromunda would be forged anew in the fires of the Great Crusade, and brought into the enduring light of the Emperor. During the glorious time of the Great Crusade, the strategic value of a world such as Necromunda could not be overlooked. Even in its defiant and recalcitrant state, its vast industrial potential was evident. A powerhouse of manufacturing that could feed the Imperium's unquenchable hunger for base manufactured goods. To bring such a world into imperial compliance was not merely a matter of conquest, but of securing a vital, if perpetually troublesome, asset for mankind's manifest destiny among the stars. The sacred task of bringing Necromunda into the light of the Emperor fell to the esteemed Imperial Fists Legion. Their arrival was the final word in a long history of pre-imperial isolation, as the unyielding might of the Adeptus Astartes was brought to bear upon the defiant world. The cost of this compliance was severe. It is said in legends that persist to this day that the planet's characteristic ash wastes are themselves a direct byproduct of the devastation wrought upon the world during its brief defiance of the coming of the Imperium. While the absolute truth of this claim is lost beneath the toxic plains, the scarred landscape stands as a silent reminder to the price of rebellion. Yet the Legion's departure did not sow the seeds of peace, but rather salted the earth for 3 millennia of bitter internal strife. Imperial compliance did not bring lasting peace to Necromunda. For the next 3,000 years, the world was racked by unceasing conflict, an ignoble lost age defined by insurrection. A succession of corrupt hive lords and savage gang kings vied for power, their petty ambitions plunging the planet into repeated cycles of rebellion that forced the Adeptus Terra to dispatch forces to pacify the world on more than one occasion. This constant turmoil reveals Necromunda's inherently ungovernable nature, a paradox for an Imperium that would tolerate such constant sedition for the sake of its industrial output. The world was a necessary evil, perpetually on the brink of self-destruction, but too valuable to abandon. The most significant of these interventions was the Second Great Pacification, again undertaken by the warriors of the Imperial Fists. This was no mere punitive action, but a near-total cleansing of the planet's ruling malefactions. The severity of the campaign resulted in the extermination of almost the entirety of Necromunda's ruling elite. In the power vacuum that followed, mid-hive clan masters were left in their place, their rule overseen by the careful watch of arbitrators. This constant turmoil acted as a brutal culling process, a crucible of conflict that prevented any single power from establishing true, lasting dominance. This crucible of unending war, however, served an unintended purpose. It created a vacuum that only a will of unparalleled iron, forged in the very depths of the hive, could hope to fill. The emergence of Martek Helmar stands as the pivotal moment in Necromunda's recorded history. He was the singular figure who rose from the throngs of anarchic rule to finally end 3 millennia of strife, establishing the imperial dynasty that has endured for 7,000 years and whose authority remains the bedrock of Necromundan society. Chronicles recount his origins as a street tough from the drudging habs of Hive Primus. He is a figure deliberately shrouded in myth, his true history supplanted by the glorious iconography demanded by his dynasty. Indeed, if the grandiose statues and paintings that adorn the spire of Hive Primus are to be believed, he was an impossible figure of 10 feet in height and unparalleled handsomeness. Grandeur aside, what is known is that Martek Helmar led a war of conquest that began within his own hive, and did not end until his rule extended across the entire planet, unifying Necromunda under a single banner for the first time since its compliance. The dynasty he founded faced its first existential threat generations later with his last true gene descendant, Jar Helmar, a deformed and frail creature kept alive in a bed of nutrient cables. Jar possessed a foresight that belied his pathetic physicality. To ensure the preservation of his line, he initiated a program of genetic harvesting, mixing favorable DNA strands from the strongest Necromundans with his own to create the modern, enduring House of Helmar. This act of genetic artifice proved critical. During the Night of Long Shadows, a treacherous alliance of noble houses dispatched a legion of assassins to destroy the nascent Helmar line. Jar's foresight, however, had countered such a betrayal. He had hired the meanest gangs and bounty hunters ever to crawl out of the Underhive to serve as protectors for his gene children. When the assassins struck, they were met not by palace guards, but by the brutal, unforgiving violence of the Bad Zones. The Helmar line was secured, its future guaranteed. This was the foundational act that established the Helmar method of rule. The cynical understanding that true power on Necromunda is not merely wielded from the spire down, but also influenced from the sump up. Though the ascendancy of House Helmar brought a new era of stability, its long rule has not been without challenge. The dynasty's 7,000-year reign has been defined by the continuous suppression of ideological threats and the masterful management of internal crises, each test serving to reinforce its absolute grip on Necromunda. A stark example was the ideological conflict with Gothrul's Needle. In stark opposition to the rigid feudal hierarchy of Lord Helmar's Imperium, this rival hive was ruled by a dangerous and pernicious democracy. This heretical notion of mob rule, with its elected representatives and philosophies antithetical to the Emperor's divine order, was deemed an insidious political contagion. As a result, the houses of other hives, undoubtedly with the sanction of the Imperial House, engaged Gothrul's Needle in a long and bitter shadow war to extinguish its aberrant political structure. The dynasty's capacity for absolute, iron-fisted authority was demonstrated unequivocally during the rule of Sindarak Helmar. When the Minerva cluster was struck by a devastating famine, the Imperial House refused to lift Sindarak's standing restrictions on travel to allow relief from orbit or by stratoplane. This decision, which condemned untold numbers to starvation, served as a chilling reminder that the will of House Helmar superseded all other concerns, including life itself. Thus, the 7,000-year reign of House Helmar was forged in a trinity of uniquely Necromundan statecraft: the culling of rivals through tolerated anarchy, the perfection of its own bloodline through genetic artifice, and the masterful leverage of the planet's most savage elements as a tool of control. It stands as the undisputed, if not unchallenged, master of Necromunda. The defining principle of Necromundan society is a system of vertical feudalism, a rigid hierarchical structure physically manifested in the very architecture of its hive cities. Hive Primus, the planet's capital, stands as the ultimate testament to this order. Its towering spires and plunging underbellies are not mere geography, but a brutally efficient cartography of power, where one's physical elevation is an absolute reflection of one's station. This structure, while merciless, is the sanctioned and effective system of control through which the Imperium's demands are met, channeling the planet's vast resources with grim efficiency. It is a microcosm of the necessary order that maintains stability across 1,000,000 worlds in his name, where every soul pledges loyalty upwards in a chain of obligation from the lowest sump dweller to the absolute ruler at the hive's peak. At the apex of this entire edifice sits Imperial Commander Lord Gerontius Helmar, the 137th Lord of Necromunda. His authority is absolute, derived from a bloodline that has reigned over the world for at least 7,000 years. This ancient lineage provides a powerful claim to legitimacy, but the true sources of his power are twofold and unassailable. Firstly, he is the designated Imperial Commander, his rule sanctioned and enforced by the laws of the Adeptus Terra. Secondly, and of vital importance for maintaining control over the Hive's populace, his position is sanctified by the imperial creed. He is seen not merely as a governor, but as the representative of the emperor himself upon Necromunda, a belief that elevates his edicts to the level of Holy Writ. House Helmar's governorship is predicated on a vital compact with the wider Imperium. So long as Lord Helmar fulfills his feudal obligations to the God Emperor, his autonomy is assured. This quid pro quo arrangement ensures Necromunda remains a productive and compliant asset to the Imperium. The first of its duties is to maintaining production capacity, the core function of any Hive World. Necromunda is a vast industrial powerhouse, and Helmar's primary responsibility is to ensure its thousands of mines, factories, and refineries never cease their output of manufactured goods for nearby planetary systems. Lord Helmar is also charged with delivering Necromunda's great tithe to the Imperium, a colossal offering of its industrial and material wealth that helps fuel the Emperor's armies and bureaucracies across the galaxy. The teeming billions of Necromunda's hives represent a near limitless wellspring of manpower. Helmar's pact includes the regular provision of vast numbers of recruits for the Astra Militarum. Last but not least, the Imperial House is responsible for the careful regulation of all psyker strains on Necromunda. Sanctioned individuals are tithed to the Black Ships, fulfilling the planet's most solemn duty to the Golden Throne. 10 miles above the planet's toxic surface, soaring high enough to pierce the polluted cloud cover, lies the Spire. This is the rarefied and opulent domain of Necromunda's elite. Here, within magnificent climate-controlled towers, the great noble houses, such as Catalus, Graham, and Eulanti, reside in luxury. At the very pinnacle of this structure is the seat of Lord Helmar's power, his Spire Palace, known as the Palatine. The physical and social distance from the toiling masses below is absolute. This ironclad order is guaranteed by the presence of the Imperial Fist's chapter house within the spire. This is no mere symbol. It is the physical embodiment of a historical lesson. During the Second Great Pacification, the Adeptus Astartes purged Necromunda's rebellious ruling elite. The chapter house thus serves as the ultimate deterrent against any large-scale sedition that could threaten the imperial tithe, ensuring that Lord Helmar's compact is upheld and that such a costly intervention will never again be necessary. Located in low orbit, 100 kilometers above Hive Primus, is the Eye of Selene, the largest of Necromunda's orbital platforms. This vast trading depot, with its docking cathedrals and plasma vaults, functions as the planet's primary spaceport and sole shipping nexus. Control of this critical piece of infrastructure grants Lord Helmar a complete and unassailable monopoly on all off-world trade. Every import and export must pass through his hands, making it the ultimate instrument of his economic and political control over the entire planet. Below the impenetrable wall that separates the elite from the masses lies the Hive City, a dense urban structure stretching roughly 5 miles high. This is the domain of Necromunda's billions, who are born, toil, and die within its cramped hab zones and smog-choked manufactories. Presiding over this vast industrial engine are the clan houses, such as Goliath, Orlock, and Escher. They act as the middle management of the Hive, overseeing the planet's manufacturing base. House Escher, for example, dominates the upper reaches near the wall, controlling many of the gates between Hive City and the Spire in alliance with the Guild of Coin. Beneath the Hive City crumbles the Underhive, a lawless, polluted region of ancient ruins, abandoned machinery, and collapsed domes. This is a frontier land, known as the Bad Zones, that exists beyond the formal laws of house and hive. Life here is violent and short, a desperate scramble for survival and fortune. Most critically, the underhive serves a vital function in maintaining the hive's stability. It is the primary battleground for the proxy wars fought between the clan houses, a violent arena where their subservient gangs clash over territory and resources, settling disputes without threatening the vital industrial zones of the hive city above. At the absolute nadir of Hive Primus is the hive bottom, a structurally dangerous and geographically indistinct region that bleeds into a toxic, semi-liquid morass known as the sump. This is the final resting place for the hive's accumulated waste, a corrosive and poisonous effluence that represents the final discarded layer of Necromundan society. It is a place of monstrous creatures and unthinkable horrors, a hellish environment where only the most desperate or mutated can hope to survive. This rigid verticality is not a static monument, but a dynamic arena, animated by a complex web of trade, guilds, and controlled conflict that ensures the hive's continued, brutal function. Beneath the rigid feudal structure of Hive Primus lies a complex and dynamic web of economic and political relationships that is the true engine of its society. This intricate network of merchant guilds, clandestine economies, and carefully sanctioned gang warfare may appear chaotic to an outside observer. In truth, these are the essential, interlocking mechanisms of a self-regulating system. They are the instruments that manage the flow of resources, provide outlets for ambition and aggression, and ultimately prevent the hive from collapsing under its own immense weight, ensuring its continued service to the Imperium. The Merchant Guild, or Mercator, plays a pivotal role in this system. Its members are the indispensable intermediaries who regulate the supply and demand of all essential resources and commodities, from promethium fuel to corpse starch rations. This gives them a dual nature. They are exploitative profiteers who profit from every transaction, yet they are also the essential enablers who ensure the hive's billions do not starve and its manufactories do not fall silent. The Mercator divides into specialized sub-guilds, each controlling specific domains of commerce with jealous attention to monopoly and jurisdiction. The Mercator Horus, known commonly as the Chrono Guild, maintains enigmatic influence across the planet through mechanisms not fully documented in available records. Their operations remain deliberately obscured, though it is known that the now lost vaults of Hive Secundus once housed protected Chrono Guild facilities. What temporal or administrative functions these installations served before the Hive's fall remains subject to speculation, the Guild itself offering no clarification to outsiders. Their very name suggests involvement in the measurement and regulation of time itself, perhaps maintaining the synchronization of work shifts across multiple hives, or controlling access to historical records that might prove valuable or dangerous in the wrong hands. The Mercator Lux, designated the Electro Guild, holds dominion over the generation and distribution of all electrical power throughout the hive cities. This represents perhaps the most critical resource monopoly on Necromunda. Without the electrical current flowing through ancient conduits and jury-rigged power grids, the entire hive would grind to immediate halt. Manufacturums would cease production. Life support systems maintaining breathable atmosphere would fail. Lighting would extinguish, plunging billions into absolute darkness within warrens where natural light has never penetrated. The Electro Guild exploits this dependency ruthlessly. They determine which districts receive reliable power and which must make do with intermittent supply or complete darkness. Their technicians control access to generator facilities and transformer stations, positions of such strategic importance that they operate under constant armed guard. Sabotage of Electro Guild infrastructure represents one of the few offenses that draws immediate, overwhelming response from enforcers, regardless of which house or gang commits the act. The ruling powers recognize that widespread power failure could trigger uprising that might threaten even the Spire itself. The Mercator Guild, commonly called the Guild of Coin, controls trade routes and collects tolls across Necromunda's surface and Underhive both. Acting as financial intermediary in countless transactions, their purview extends from the great ash gates connecting the Hive cities to the black markets where even poisoned foodstuffs find illicit sale. No caravan crosses the ash wastes without paying Mercator Gelt tariffs. No significant trade agreement concludes without their clerks recording the transaction and extracting their percentage. The Guild of Coin maintains its own enforcement arms, heavily armed toll collectors who ensure payment and pursue those foolish enough to attempt avoidance. Their agents operate openly at official checkpoints, but also maintain extensive networks of informants throughout the Underhive, tracking unofficial commerce and demanding their share even from transactions the Imperial House might deem criminal. This creates a peculiar relationship with the gang houses. The Mercator Gelt neither opposes nor supports their activities, instead simply ensuring that all economic activity, legitimate or otherwise, contributes to guild coffers. Their financial records theoretically provide complete accounting of Necromunda's economy, though the guild guards these documents with measures approaching religious fanaticism. Access to such information would grant enormous strategic advantage to any house clever enough to analyze trade patterns and identify vulnerabilities in rival supply chains. Consequently, Mercator Gelt vaults rank among the most heavily fortified locations in the Hives, protected by measures both technological and arcane, their contents valued more highly than stockpiles of weapons or refined promethium. Together, these guild structures create an economic framework that transcends the clan-house conflicts. While Escher and Goliath war over territory, while Orlock and Delaque engage in shadow conflicts, the Mercator continues its essential functions, ensuring the Hive breathes, the forges burn, and commerce flows. They represent the infrastructure of oppression itself, the mechanisms that make exploitation efficient and systemic, rather than merely brutal and chaotic. The guilds maintain this position through calculated neutrality in clan-house affairs. They sell to all houses, extract tolls from all houses, provide power to all houses. This impartiality stems not from principle, but from pure commercial logic. Taking sides would reduce their customer base and invite retribution that might disrupt the profitable status quo. Yet this neutrality itself becomes a form of power, as no single house can afford to alienate the organizations controlling resources essential for survival. The relationship between guild and imperial house remains deliberately ambiguous in official records. Clearly the Mercator operates with Lord Helmar's sanction, their monopolies enforced by laws promulgated from the Spire. Yet the extent of direct control versus autonomous operation remains unclear. Some scholars suggest the guilds function essentially as extensions of imperial house authority, their apparent independence merely convenient fiction, allowing the nobility to disclaim responsibility for particularly exploitative practices. Others argue the Mercator has achieved genuine autonomy, their economic power making them partners rather than servants of the planetary government. The truth likely lies between these extremes. The Mercator needs Imperial House protection to maintain their monopolies against House challenges. The Imperial House needs Mercator efficiency to keep the Hive functioning and the tithe flowing. This mutual dependency creates stable arrangement, serving both parties' interests, while ensuring the population below remains locked in system where every necessity requires payment to distant masters who care nothing for individual suffering. Open warfare between the clan houses, known as a Hive War, is considered a harmful civil war that damages industry and commerce. In the millennia since the ascendancy of House Helmar, such conflicts have been harshly discouraged. To satisfy their need for competition and conflict resolution, the houses instead engage in proxy wars. They utilize their subservient gangs as disposable foot soldiers to fight localized conflicts within the lawless expanse of the Underhive. These feuds over territory, contracts, and influence allow the houses to compete without disrupting the vital production centers of the Hive City. This system is a masterstroke of imperial governance. It channels the inherent violence and ambition of a massive, oppressed population into a productive, self-regulating mechanism, preventing the build-up of pressures that could lead to a full-scale planetary rebellion which would disrupt tithes for decades. Thus, a state of perpetual managed conflict is not a flaw in the governance of Necromunda, but rather the very engine that guarantees its unwavering loyalty and productivity. It is a harsh but necessary calculus that ensures this world, and countless others like it, continue to serve the Emperor's grand design. From the deepest slag-choked pits to the smog-wreathed spires that pierce the toxic clouds, the great Hive World of Necromunda is defined by the endless, grinding toil of its populace. This vast industrial and social engine is fueled by the sweat, blood, and ambition of the 6 great clan houses. Each is a sprawling empire unto itself, a unique culture forged in the crucible of conflict, industry, and survival. They are the miners of iron, the forgers of flesh, the alchemists of venom, the artisans of forbidden technology, the purveyors of shadow, and the scavengers of faith. To understand these houses, their origins, their methodologies, and their bitter rivalries, is to comprehend the brutal, unyielding feudal hierarchy that governs every waking moment of every soul on this ash-cursed world. They are the true heart, however blackened, of Necromunda itself. House Goliath are the undisputed lords of the great forge enclaves and furnace sectors, their swollen, vat-grown bodies perfectly adapted to toil in oppressive heat and smog that would scour the lungs and boil the blood of a lesser human. To stand at the precipice of a Goliath forge cathedral is to gaze into a man-made hell. The air tastes of burnt metal and chemical runoff, searing the throat with every breath. The shriek of tortured metal is a constant, punctuated by the percussive roar of furnace gates opening like the maws of angry gods, casting waves of incandescent heat that ripple the very air. In this inferno, the Goliaths move with a purpose born of their design, their mountainous forms silhouetted against the fire, their sweat turning to steam upon their skin. To the other houses, the Goliaths are often dismissed as simple brutes and ogrin-brained barbarians, their culture perceived as nothing more than a pathological obsession with physical strength and crude violence. This perception, while not entirely inaccurate, dangerously belies a complex and tragic society built upon a foundation of engineered servitude and a desperate, violent struggle for identity. At the core of the Goliath psyche lies an obsession with the flesh, a relentless pursuit of physical perfection that is both their greatest strength and their most profound weakness. Goliaths are not born in the conventional sense. Their very flesh a product of esoteric biological tampering. They are living weapons and perfect laborers, bred for immense strength and endurance at the terrible cost of intellect and longevity. This engineered existence has shaped a culture that does not fear death, but embraces it. A people who seek to prove their superiority through acts of extreme danger, and who view their short, brutal lives as a challenge to be met with roaring defiance. They are the unyielding muscle of Necromunda's low-tech industry. Their history, written not in gilded tomes, but in the molten marks branded upon the flesh of their slaves, and the blood spilled in their fighting pits. Yet, as one observes these titans toiling in their self-made hell, one must ask, from what dark dream of industry did such beings spring? The genesis of House Goliath lies in the dark ambition of a previous Lord Helmar, who envisioned the perfect worker, a being of immense strength and endurance, utterly compliant and purpose-bred for unending toil. This dream was brought to horrifying fruition through an alliance of convenience between the bio-architects of House Van Saar and the chem matrons of House Escher. Their combined expertise in genecraft and alchemy deemed necessary for such a monstrous undertaking. For centuries, these two houses pursued the creation of this uber-worker, their biolabs and chemclaves becoming fortified strongholds against the saboteurs and assassins sent by other houses, who, quite rightly, feared the imbalance such a creation would bring to the delicate feudal ecosystem of Necromunda. The path to a stable Goliath genus was paved with catastrophic failures and blasphemous abominations. The historical archives, though heavily redacted, speak of horrors that still haunt the Underhive's collective memory. There was the amorphous, ever-expanding thing that consumed the entirety of Hive sinus before it could be contained, and the sentient, corrosive horror known as the grey ooze of Big Hole, whose birth heralded the demise of that settlement's unfortunate edgelord. These were but two of the more infamous mishaps that preceded any measure of success. When the first stable Goliaths were finally decanted from their amnio vats, they were precisely what Lord Helmar had desired. Monstrously strong, short-lived, and sterile laborers put to work in the most hazardous environments imaginable. They were slaves in all but name, their lives a brutal cycle of work and chem dependency, their bodies breaking down long before their spirits. Yet their creators had failed to account for the sliver of belligerent, obstinate humanity that remained within their vat-grown creations. The Goliaths rebelled. They fought for their freedom with the same brute force for which they were designed, turning on their masters and seizing control of their own destiny. This bloody liberation, a brutal saga of chain-fist shattering Medicastave skulls, culminated in their official recognition as a clan house. Wasting no time, the newly formed House Goliath launched the first Forge Wars, a series of aggressive campaigns to seize control of Necromunda's industrial smelting and forging sectors from their rivals. This history of engineered servitude and violent self-determination is the crucible in which the house's identity was forged. It defines their unyielding pride, their deep-seated distrust of the other houses, particularly their progenitors, Van Saar and Escher, and their core belief that strength alone grants the right to rule. The society of House Goliath is as brutally stratified as the genetic templates from which it springs. It is a rigid hierarchy defined by birthright and biological destiny, a system that creates both immense internal pressures and relentless drive for dominance. Every Goliath knows their place, for it is written in their very flesh. There are 3 paths to becoming a Goliath: to be grown in a vat, to be born of a Goliath, or to be remade as one. The overwhelming majority of the house are the vat-born. Grown with frightening rapidity in amnio-vats from flesh templates, they are decanted into the world with a baseline knowledge of their new existence, imparted by a data slug drilled into their nascent minds. Ready for a life of hard labor from the moment they take their first breath, they are towering mountains of muscle, far stronger and more durable than a baseline human. But this physical prowess comes at a terrible cost. The vat-born possess stunted intelligence, with abstract concepts and true creativity remaining forever beyond their grasp. Furthermore, their enhanced physiology is inherently unstable, requiring a lifelong dependency on growth stims and adrenal chems simply to function. Their lifespan rarely exceeds a single decade. This brutal 10-year countdown to oblivion fosters a culture that scorns the fear of death. They actively seek out extreme danger, viewing it as the ultimate test of their superiority. From the moment a prospect is tagged and sent to the forges, they face a gauntlet of lethal hazards designed to weed out the weak. For a Goliath, a life spent burning brightly in glorious violence is infinitely preferable to one that simply fades away. This existential recklessness affects every aspect of their society. They form no lasting family bonds, hold no sentiment for the past, and view their nat-born rulers with a mixture of awe and resentment, for the gift of a long life is a treasure they can never possess. In stark contrast to the vat-born are the nat-born, the natural-born elite of House Goliath. This rare caste, which includes the current over-tyrant Varan Gore, is not grown in vats, but birthed naturally. While they possess the same prodigious size and strength as their vat-born brethren, they are blessed with extended lifespans and significantly increased intelligence. These gifts position them as the undisputed ruling class of the house. They are the alphas, the forged tyrants, and the over-tyrants who command the vat-born masses, their superior intellect and longevity, allowing them to scheme and plan in ways their short-lived subjects cannot comprehend. The existence of the nat-born creates a clear, gene-defined class divide, a source of both stability and simmering resentment within the House of Chains. There is a third, less common path into the House of Chains, that of the unborn. These are outsiders, former slaves or hive scum, who have proven their strength and loyalty to such a degree that they are offered the chance to be remade. Through a brutal and often fatal process of gene-smithed augmentation and chemical saturation, these individuals are transformed, their bodies swelling with muscle, their minds reshaped by the house's crude psycho-conditioning. Unborn Goliath are viewed with a degree of suspicion, their origins outside the vats or the womb making them perpetual outsiders. They often form their own gangs, such as the infamous dog soldiers, driven by an even greater need to prove their worth and ferocity. Goliath culture is, at its core, body-obsessed. Every member of the house strives to become bigger, stronger, and more belligerently muscle-bound. While most achieve this through punishing weight training and the wielding of massive, unwieldy weapons, some turn to a more direct chemical path. A stimmer has mastered the art of chem use, brewing their own potent concoctions and following a careful regimen to maintain a level of strength far beyond that of a normal Goliath. Though prone to violent outbursts, stimmers are largely rational and often rise to positions of leadership as forge bosses or pit overseers. However, their path is a dangerous one. Overdosing or suffering a critical buildup of chemicals can trigger a spontaneous and catastrophic muscular mutation, transforming the stimmer into a Zerker, a raging, barely sentient beast of pure muscle, little better than an animal, whose only purpose is to smash and kill until it is finally brought down. The industrial heart of House Goliath beats within the furnace sectors and forge enclaves that choke the lower levels of Necromunda's hives. Their entire economy is built upon the low-tech industries of smelting ore, forging metal, and manufacturing the crude but brutally effective goods that the unquenchable hunger of the Imperium demands. Their domains are hellish landscapes of oppressive heat, toxic smog, and the constant deafening clang of hammers on anvils, an environment they were specifically engineered to endure. Slaves purchased by the Goliaths are branded with molten marks and put to work in conditions that would consume a normal human in mere cycles. Many are forced to wear compliance tattoos, chains of nanite pigments woven into their very muscles that constrict in response to electropulse charges, rendering a disobedient worker instantly paralyzed. The primary seat of Goliath power in Hive Primus is Vat City, a sprawling industrial complex where the majority of their kind are decanted from their vats and put to work in the surrounding forges. Their most significant forge enclave, a massive, fortified structure that serves as the over-tyrant's seat of power, is known simply as the Fist. The house holds major enclaves throughout the Palatine cluster, from the trade forts of Hive Tresia to the industrial cathedrals of Hive Temenos. Beyond the hives, their presence is felt in crusher forts, in the spoil and renegade forges in Carrion Town. Surprisingly, House Goliath has also established a significant foothold high above the planet in the orbital station known as the Eye of Selene. Originally brought there as slave labor to work in the lethal, radiation-soaked plasma vaults that weaker humans could not endure, the Goliaths thrived where others perished. It was not long before their numbers grew, and in a bloody echo of their original rebellion, they seized control of the vaults for themselves. This relentless expansion, driven by the paranoia and ambition of over-tyrant Varen Gore, ensures that the industrial might of House Goliath is felt from the deepest sump to the edge of the void, a might they are more than willing to protect through the brutally direct application of overwhelming force. The combat doctrine of House Goliath is a direct reflection of their physiology and culture. Overwhelming physical force applied without subtlety or restraint. They favor close-quarters brawls where their immense strength and unnatural resilience can be brought to bear, eschewing complex tactics for the simple, effective strategy of charging headlong into the enemy. A Goliath gang in battle is a terrifying spectacle of roaring, gene-bulked warriors swinging enormous weapons capable of pulverizing flesh and bone with a single thunderous blow. This brutally direct application of force, though lacking in guile, has nonetheless proven devastatingly effective in carving out their slag heap empire. Their armaments are as crude and brutal as their methods. They wield massive stub cannons that roar like beasts, rivet cannons that fire white-hot industrial fasteners capable of pinning a man to a bulkhead, heavy and brutal spud jackers for crushing skulls, and the terrifying renderizer serrated axes, two-handed chain axes designed to rip through armor and flesh with equal gore-splattering ease. The ranks of their gangs are a clear reflection of their societal structure. Fresh-faced prospects, known as bullies, are fresh from the vats and eager to prove themselves in the few years of life granted to them. They form the screaming front lines, their youthful recklessness a potent weapon. They are led by experienced forge tyrants and forge bosses, often nat-born, whose cunning is a match for their strength. The champions of the gang are frequently stimmers, their bodies surging with combat drugs as they lead the charge, their minds lost to a frenzy of controlled violence. This approach to warfare fuels their most defining and bitter rivalry, the endless, bloody conflict with the graceful and venomous warriors of House Escher. It is a clash of brute force against deadly alchemy, of the sledgehammer against the stiletto, a conflict that has come to define the martial identity of both houses. The reputation of the House of Chains is built upon the blood-soaked legends of its greatest warriors and most savage gangs. These are the tales told in the roar of the forges and the fighting pits, stories of impossible strength and unrelenting brutality that inspire new generations of Goliaths to seek glory in violence and an early, spectacular death. The tale of Durgan Killfist and his Knuckle Boys is a favorite among the gangs of Hive Primus. It is said they once turned an entire habdome into their own personal arena. After welding the blast doors and conveyors shut, they trapped 3 rival gangs inside and sparked a brawl that raged for 3 days, painting the tunnels red with the blood of their enemies and cementing Killfist's name in Goliath legend. Another oft-told tale is that of Gernark the Boot King, a gang leader who seized control of the great West Ash Gate of Hive Acropolis. For an entire month, he and his gangers held this vital conduit of commerce, defying the authority of House Orlock and the Guild of Coin. They terrorized local merchants, demanding tribute for passage and turning their stubber turrets on any who were not quick enough to bend the knee to the self-styled Boot King. The greatest living legend of the house is the current over-tyrant Varan Gore. A Natborn, Gore began his life as a lowly pit fighter in the Shatterbone arena. His innate gifts, combined with a relentless thirst for combat, saw him fight his way from the pits to become a rebel gang leader. Through years of brutal raids and punishing victories against the rivals of his house, he ascended the hierarchy, eventually becoming the alpha of Acropolis Hive. Finally, he traveled to Hive Primus to challenge the reigning over-tyrant, defeating his predecessor in single combat and claiming the throne of the House of Chains for himself. House Escher is a study in contradictions. It is at once ancient and youthful, a matriarchal dynasty that can trace its lineage back to the earliest days of imperial rule on Necromunda, yet its public face is that of its young, aggressive gang warriors. Their power is built upon the twin pillars of a vast chemical empire and a terrifying mastery of violence. To outsiders, they are known for their wild runners and gang queens, who stalk the underhive with reckless aggression, their hair a riot of impossible color, their lithe forms accompanied by strange, gene-smithed fear cats. They move with a lethal grace, and the mere touch of their blades is capable of setting a victim's nerves on fire or turning their own blood into a virulent poison. This vibrant image of youthful energy, however, is guided by ancient wisdom. House Escher is ruled by the Council of Crones, the oldest and most powerful women of the clan, led by the matriarch Primus. It is this council that oversees the house's true source of power, the production of exotic stims, potent combat drugs, and deadly toxins that supply not only their own gangs, but also the noble houses of the Spire, for whom they concoct life-extending elixirs and fashionable narcotics. This chemical mastery grants them wealth and influence unparalleled among the clan houses, making them more prosperous than any other. Yet beneath the vibrant aggression and shrewd commerce lies a dark biological secret, a genetic tragedy that sealed the fate of their menfolk millennia ago and cemented the foundations of their matriarchal society forever. It is a secret they guard as jealously as the formulas to their most lethal poisons. The origins of House Escher lie with an ancient clan known as the Ashaki. For millennia, the Ashaki were a force to be reckoned with, their power growing through the skilled application of both chems and violence. Their chem warriors were feared throughout the hives, their bodies willingly subjected to genetic manipulation and alchemical enhancement to gain an edge over their rivals. For 1,000 years their influence spread as they took advantage of strife and instability to seize territory from other houses. This obsession with gene manipulation, this relentless quest for physical perfection through science, would prove to be their undoing. In the closing decades of the 39th millennium, a genetic malady known as the Flesh Curse swept through the clan. A direct and catastrophic result of their own alchemical and gene splicing processes, the curse afflicted only the men of the house. They began to wither and decline, their once feared chem warriors becoming frail, stunted creatures kept alive only by the very stims that had once made them powerful. The last man to rule the Ashaki, Orlock Twiceborn, was a withered thing, a symbol of his clan's decay, his authority a hollow echo of past glories. Seeing this weakness, the enemies of the house moved in for the kill. House Van Saar struck first, seizing Ashaki holdings in Hive Secundus and slaughtering the clan's settlements in the glittering Hall of Graces. In other hives, agents of House Ran Lo engineered the mass exile of their workers and slaughtered their gangs. The weakened Ashaki could not retaliate. Just as the clan seemed on the brink of extinction, it was reborn. The women of the clan, who had remained untouched by the Flesh Curse, rose up to defend their legacy. Under the leadership of Voeditia, who took the title of Matriarch Primus, the clan was reforged as House Escher. This historical trauma, the near annihilation of their people brought on by their own hubris and the predation of their rivals, cemented the matriarchal traditions that define the house to this day. It taught them that their mastery over alchemy was not merely a tool of commerce or a weapon of war, but the very key to their survival. The society of House Escher is a complex and multifaceted sisterhood, structured to ensure the survival and prosperity of the clan against all threats. At its apex is the Council of Crones, comprised of the oldest and most powerful women from the ruling families. They are led by the matriarch Primus, a single ruler who must embody the three aspects of the Escher: the maiden, representing the clan's youth and aggression; the mother, nurturing and ensuring the future of the clan; and the matriarch, the wise elder guiding them all. This threefold aspect is symbolized by the three-faced crown she wears. The house itself is divided into several key factions, each playing a vital and distinct role in its continued dominance. The clan chemists are the lifeblood of House Escher. instantly recognizable in their long purple robes and white surgical veils. They are the matrons of the house's chemical empire. It is their responsibility to manufacture the vast array of combat stims and deadly toxins that give Escher gangs their lethal edge in the underhive. From gaseous compounds that cause flesh to slough from bone to poisons that boil the blood in one's veins. More importantly, however, the chemists are the guardians of the clan's future. They hold the esoteric knowledge of asexual reproduction that allows the house to continue, and they tend to the few withered males who survived the flesh curse, their frail existence essential for producing new generations of Escher children. They are present at every birth and every death, their alchemical skills woven into the very fabric of Escher life. The most visible and numerous members of the house are its warriors. These are the gang queens, wild runners, and gang sisters, youthful, aggressive, and utterly deadly. They are the public face of the house, their gangs stalking the underhive and fighting the proxy wars that protect Escher interests. They embody the maiden aspect of the house, reckless, violent, and fiercely independent. Their skill at arms a constant and brutal reminder of Escher's strength in a world that respects little else. Perhaps the most feared of all Escher fighters are the Death Maidens, a terrible legacy of the Ashaki's genetic experiments. Death Maidens are warriors brought back from the brink of death through a complex and agonizingly painful chemical process. The freshly deceased are pumped full of an exotic cocktail of chems that forces dead tissue back to life, re-knitting flesh and restarting organs. A reanimated Death Maiden retains her muscle memory and reflexes, her body now largely immune to pain and shock. A terrifying side effect of the process makes their very blood a potent toxin, a weapon they frequently employ by channeling it through tubes onto their blades and weapon points, ensuring that even a scratch can be fatal. Within Escher society exists a faction of wise women and oracles known as Shivers. These women are touched by the warp, possessing minor precognitive gifts far below the level that would attract the sanction of the Adeptus Terra and the dreaded Black Ships. For centuries, the matriarchs of the house have turned to the Shivers for their counsel, their flashes of insight and glimpses of the future guiding the leadership through times of crisis and uncertainty, their whispers shaping the destiny of the clan. This intricate division of power, from the alchemists who ensure the clan's survival to the warriors who defend its honor, the reanimated dead who serve as its ultimate weapons, and the seers who guide its path, creates a society that is as resilient and deadly as the poisons it perfects. The immense wealth and influence of House Escher flows from a single source, its unparalleled mastery of chem alchemy. Their primary industry is the production of a vast array of pharmaceuticals, from life-extending elixirs for the nobles of the Spire to potent combat stims, exotic toxins, and gaseous compounds for the gangs of the underhive. This chemical empire makes Escher more prosperous than any other clan house on Necromunda, their coffers overflowing with the credits paid by nobles desperate to stave off aging and gang leaders eager for a chemical edge. This wealth has allowed them to dominate the valuable upper reaches of Hive City in Hive Primus. Many of their holdings are located just below the wall that separates Hive City from the Spire, and they control many of the gates between these two regions in alliance with the Guild of Coin. Their primary settlement in Hive Primus is known as the Sirens, a cluster of elegant blade-like towers that rise just below the Spire's crown of defenses. 3 towers rise above the rest: the Maiden Spire, the Mother Spire, and the matriarch spire. It is at the peak of this final tower, in the lush and opulent sky gardens, that sometimes push through Necromunda's toxic cloud layer to be bathed in the weak light of its star, that the matriarch Primus holds her court. This prime territory places them in direct and constant competition with the technologically advanced House Van Saar, both houses vying for control of the lucrative regions surrounding the Primus spaceport. This control over both the planet's chemtrade and its most valuable real estate is maintained by the house's unique and deadly methods of warfare. The Escher way of war is a reflection of their matriarchal culture. It is swift, graceful, and utterly lethal. In stark contrast to the brute force tactics of their hated rivals, House Goliath, Escher gangs rely on speed, agility, and the expert application of their unique chemical arsenal. An Escher warrior is a blur of motion, her blades weaving a deadly dance that ends with a single, poison-laced scratch. They are hunters and ambushers, using their knowledge of the terrain to flank and isolate their foes before overwhelming them with a flurry of toxic attacks. Their clan chemists produce an astonishing variety of toxins, chems, and toxic ammunition types. Their blades are often coated in poisons that can corrupt a victim's blood or set their nerves alight with unimaginable pain. Chems like bad blood contain genophagic hem mimics that turn a warrior's own lifeblood into a weapon against their allies. Should they be wounded, a single drop of their blood becomes a potent contact toxin to any who touch it. Other concoctions, like the ironically named Night Night, use bioanesthetics to ensure that even if a fighter survives a battle, they will not survive the healing coma that follows. This mastery of chemical warfare makes every Escher fighter a potential assassin, their lightest touch capable of delivering a fatal dose. Further enhancing their deadly prowess is their use of strange and exotic beasts in battle. Escher gangs are often accompanied by packs of gene-smithed fear cats, felinoid creatures of uncanny speed and ferocity, and the reptilian phalanx, also known as venom cats. These creatures are swift, stealthy hunters, their claws and fangs often coated in the same neurotoxins as their mistresses' blades. This combination of speed, chemical weaponry, and ferocious beasts makes an Escher gang a formidable and unpredictable foe. Their combat identity is forged in the fires of their fierce rivalry with House Goliath, a conflict that serves as a constant proving ground for their deadly arts. The history of the house is written in the blood of its enemies, a saga memorialized in the chronicles of its greatest gang queens. The long and storied history of House Escher is punctuated by legendary deeds and the reigns of infamous matriarchs. These tales are recounted in the chemist covens and gang hideouts, serving as both cautionary fables and inspirations for future generations of warrior women. When House Orlock sought to take advantage of a perceived weakness in the Escher line, they launched a series of raids against the Escher-owned settlement of Ashtown on the Great Ash Road. Expecting little resistance, 3 full Orlock road gangs descended upon the town, only to be met by a mere 20 Escher wild runners. What followed was a firefight that lasted for 3 entire days, at the end of which the Orlock gangs were driven off, soundly disabused of the notion that Escher was a soft target. The pride of House Escher is as sharp as its blades. When the corpulent Lord Gormak of House Coiron publicly declared the headdress of matriarch Primus Deliane to be a bit last cycle, she immediately challenged him to a duel. Thinking to humiliate the clan house upstart, Gormak named a massive Goliath pit fighter as his champion. To the Lord's horror, Delian took great pleasure in dispatching the Goliath before him, her poisoned power blade weaving through his clumsy attacks, ensuring Gormak understood that every elegant fatal cut was meant for him. Seeking retribution for a past slight, the Goliath Alpha of the Minerva cluster attempted to poison the local Escher population by tainting tons of corpse starch bound for their habs. The Eschers of Minerva, however, saw through the clumsy ruse. With a cunning that was uniquely their own, they repackaged the poisoned foodstuffs and, through the Guild of Coin, sold them right back to House Goliath, turning their enemy's weapon back upon them. They say the members of House Orlock have iron in their souls, a fitting description for a people whose entire existence is founded upon the deep, ferrous slag pits that scar the surface of Necromunda. As the masters of the planet's vast mining operations, House Orlock controls the flow of ore and scrap metal that feeds the unquenchable hunger of the Hive World's industries. Their power does not reside in elegant spires or hidden laboratories, but out on the irradiated corrosive ash wastes and along the vital, heavily fortified land routes that connect the hives. The true seat of Orlock power is the driver's cab of a 10,000-ton land train, its cargo holds groaning with ore, its hull bristling with heavy stubbers, rumbling through a storm of corrosive ash. The house's foundation is built upon the backs of a massive slave underclass, known as the Drudges, who toil in the darkness of the mines and the smoke-wreathed refineries. Above them stand the clan families, whose tough and fearless outriders defend the vast ore convoys that traverse the wastes. These iron riders and road bosses are the public face of the house, pragmatic, determined, and utterly reliable. Theirs is an empire built not on esoteric knowledge or genetic superiority, but on grit, loyalty, and the sheer weight of iron they command. This status was not granted to them. It was seized through a century of conflict and shrewd, bloody-minded pragmatism that has become the house's defining characteristic. In just 3 short millennia, House Orlock rose from a loose confederation of wasteland prospectors and duster clans to become the preeminent mining power on Necromunda. Their origins lie with a canny and ruthless founder named Olandus, who united the most powerful wasteland families, the hot-headed Communs, the ash-bitten Cinderjacks, and the cold, ruthless Murdernas, into a formidable alliance. With their combined strength, Olandus set his sights on supplanting the then-dominant clan house, House Orland. What followed was a brutal, century-long raiding war for control of the spoil, Necromunda's most profitable mining region. The fledgling House Orlock systematically dismantled Orland's operations, hijacking their shipments, raiding their wasteland settlements, and absorbing their holdings piece by bloody piece. Throughout this long conflict, the Orlocks displayed a ruthless pragmatism that would become their hallmark. They understood the delicate balance of power on Necromunda, and were careful never to push so far as to bring the wrath of the great houses down upon them. Crucially, they always ensured that the Merchant Guild and the Imperial House of Helmar received their cut of the profits, often delivering ore shipments even more reliably than the house they were actively destroying. This shrewd approach paid off. When the last vestiges of House Orlund were finally destroyed, and their operations completely absorbed, Lord Helmar, pleased with the increase in production and the Orlock's reliable tribute, officially bestowed upon them the title of Clan House. This history of wasteland conquest, violent expansion, and cunning politics forged a house that values reliability, loyalty, and absolute control above all else. They are a people who understand that power on Necromunda is not given, but taken, and held only through constant, unblinking vigilance against rivals, nomads, and the simmering resentment of their own underclass. The social structure of House Orlock is a brutally simple pyramid, built upon the simmering discontent of a massive underclass. At the top sit the ruling clan families, the descendants of the Comund, Cinderjack, and Medina clans, who command the house's wealth and military strength. Beneath them are the drudges, an immense population born into servitude, bonded for life to the mines and factorums. Yet the drudges of House Orlock occupy a unique position. Unlike the true slaves of other houses, they possess a sliver of hope. Every drudge has the right to call themselves a citizen of House Orlock and to bear a shortened version of the family name they serve. A servant of the Cinderjacks is a Jack, while one who serves the Modenas is a Merd. This small concession grants them an identity and the dream of rising above their station. The constant threat of rebellion from this vast, hopeful underclass has forced the ruling families into a tight-knit, fiercely loyal, yet brutally hierarchical society. Those who prove themselves through courage and grit can ascend, joining the ranks of the house's feared gangs. The backbone of any Orlock gang is its gunners. Most begin life as drudges, destined for the mines, but through determination, they earn their place. The typical trial is an ash road run, a journey out into the terrifying, open wastes between hives. For a hiver accustomed to the confines of steel walls and low ceilings, simply standing under Necromunda's polluted sky is an act of profound bravery. Those who conquer this primal fear and survive the journey are welcomed into the ranks of the gang as true Orlocks. Among the youngest and most daring prospects are the Wreckers. These reckless warriors use homemade, temperamental jetpacks to assault rival convoys on the move. They leap from their own vehicles onto the roofs of enemy rigs, using bombs and cutting tools to sabotage the vehicle or hack their way inside to liberate its cargo, before leaping away as the target erupts in a plume of fire. The casualty rate is phenomenally high, but the promise of glory and respect ensures there is never a shortage of prospects eager to prove their mettle in this trial by fire. Gunners who survive long enough may be elevated to the rank of Iron Rider. These are the clan's true road warriors, spending their careers in the saddle of an ash runner or mototrack, protecting the great land convoys from nomad raiders and rival house ambushes. Their experience in the horrors of the wastes makes them hardened and exceptionally skilled fighters, their eyes accustomed to spotting the glint of a sniper's scope in the dust-choked distance. At the top of the gang hierarchy are the road bosses. These hard-bitten leaders have earned their rank through the only means recognized by the House of Iron, seizing and holding a vital transit route. A road boss's authority is absolute. Their control over a key artery of commerce, the ultimate proof of their strength, cunning, and the loyalty of their crew. This society, forged in the wastes and tempered by the constant threat from below, values pragmatism and loyalty above all. It is a brotherhood of iron, where a ganger's worth is measured by their willingness to get their hands dirty and their unwavering commitment to the clan. Unlike the other clan houses, who are deeply entrenched in specific sectors of the great hives, House Orlock's presence is far more fluid and nomadic. Their industrial domain is centered on the mining of ferrous slag, the extraction of metals from the irradiated crust, and the transportation of that ore in vast, heavily armed convoys across the ash wastes. Theirs is an empire of the open road. Many of their settlements are temporary road camps, mobile operations that spring up around a productive mine or a factorum and move on once the resources are played out. This constant movement has made the Orlocks masters of logistics and mobile warfare, able to relocate entire industrial operations in a matter of cycles. Their more permanent holdings are strategically located in the Nexus, near the major transit hubs and the great ash gates that control all land-based entry and exit to the hives. From these fortified positions, they regulate the flow of trade and project their power across the wastes. House Orlock has also long recognized the potential wealth hidden within the ruins of the Skull, the destroyed hive city on the edge of the Palatine Plateau. For centuries, they have sponsored scavengers and prospectors to brave the cursed region, establishing dozens of support settlements just outside the exclusion zone. This risky venture has yielded a slow but steady influx of rare minerals and archaeotech, further cementing their industrial dominance. Their mastery of Necromunda's arteries of commerce is absolute, a control maintained by their direct and brutally reliable methods of war. The Orlock way of war is a direct reflection of their industrial roots. It is pragmatic, reliable, and utterly devoid of frills. They place their faith in dependable firepower and unwavering loyalty, not in exotic technologies or esoteric doctrines. As the old Orlock saying goes, if a weapon doesn't spit lead stoppage free, there's no place for it in the House of Iron. This philosophy stems from their logistical realities. A weapon that requires specialist maintenance is a liability on a long-haul convoy run deep in the wastes. An autogun, however, can be field-stripped and cleaned with little more than engine grease and grit. Their gangs are equipped with sturdy, house-made autoguns, shotguns, and heavy stubbers, weapons that are true-stamped and built to endure the harsh conditions of the wastes. While they value reliability above all, an Orlock is not above taking a trophy weapon from a fallen enemy, seeing the grim poetry in killing a rival with their own gun. To supplement their firepower, Orlock gangs often employ cybermastiffs, canine constructs used for tracking, protecting sentry posts, and savaging downed enemies with steel jaws. This straightforward approach to combat is born of a long and notorious rivalry with the secretive House Delaque. The conflict between the two houses is a clash of philosophies. The open, straightforward grit of Orlock versus the duplicitous shadows and hidden knives of Delaque. To the House of Iron, the Delaque represent everything they despise: deceit, weakness, and an unwillingness to face an enemy head-on. The history of House Orlock is told not in the spires, but in the tales of defiance and sacrifice shared around campfires in the ash wastes. These are the legends of the men and women who carved an empire from the dust, their names synonymous with the grit and determination of the House of Iron. A classic Orlock legend is that of Drake Modena, an outlaw who killed a Delaque agent within Lord Helmar's own chambers. For 10 years, Drake blazed a trail of glorious misdeeds across the wastes, always adhering to the house's code, the Oath of Iron. He systematically drove the bounty on his own head higher and higher with each hijacked convoy, and settled score until it reached a staggering 50,000 credits. At that point, he turned himself in for execution, ensuring his family, the Modenas, could collect the reward. A final pragmatic act of loyalty to his clan. The most feared road boss in the Spider Points is Slate Murdener, founder of the infamous Sump Dogs. An outcast from the Modena family, Slate clawed his way up from being a lowly wrecker, building his first runner from scrap and taking down his first caravan before he was old enough to shave. His success was so great that the masters of House Orlock called him to a comfortable position of power within the Hive. Slate refused, unwilling to give up the freedom of the road. Impressed and perhaps a little fearful of what he might do if crossed, the house masters named him a road boss, an agent of the house with dominion over multiple gangs. He remains a master of the wastes, a true son of the Iron Roads. Even the outcasts of House Orlock find a way to survive and prosper. The Ashtown Angels, a gang of exiles run by Ajax Jones, control the remote settlement of Ashtown, a place considered the last stop for most Necromundans. From this heap of refuse, they shake down prospectors and dusters, proving that even at the bottom of the barrel, the House of Iron endures, rusts, but never breaks. In the endless churn of Necromunda's industrial machine, information is a currency as valuable as any ore or chemical compound, and House Delaque are its undisputed masters. They are the purveyors of secrets, their agents weaving a web of espionage, sabotage, and assassination that extends throughout every stratum of the hives. Their power comes not from open warfare or overt industry, but from the knowledge they gather and the carefully constructed lies they disseminate, making them the most feared and deeply suspected of all the clan houses. Where other houses build empires of iron or flesh, the Delaque construct a kingdom of whispers, its foundations laid in paranoia and its walls mortared with blackmail. The physical appearance of the Delaque is as unsettling as their reputation. They are universally pale and bald, their light-sensitive eyes often hidden behind dark glasses or visors, a common weakness in a people who thrive in the perpetual gloom of the underhive. Clad in long trench coats that conceal a deadly arsenal, they move through the hive's corridors like ghosts, their motives as shrouded as their faces. They are the unseen blade in the dark, the whisper in the corridor, and the silent, indispensable partners of Lord Helmar himself. To question their methods is to invite a quiet and sudden end, yet to understand their power, one must first question their true nature and the darkness from which they emerged. The true origins of House Delaque are a carefully guarded secret, buried beneath layers of rumor, innuendo, and deliberate misdirection. As a historian, one is forced to wade through a mire of speculation, each theory more disturbing than the last. Some hive whispers connect their genesis to an ancient subterranean psychic entity, a slumbering intelligence deep beneath the hive bottom, whose dreams infect the minds of the Delaque. Proponents of this theory point to anomalous seismic readings and periodic outbreaks of Vox ghost phenomena that seem to coincide with major Delaque operations. Another, more esoteric rumor links them to a dark dream that emanated from the rogue planet Somnus during its last near passage of the Necromunda system, suggesting their entire lineage was altered by some alien, psychic contagion from the void. Whatever their genesis, their current position is secured by a special and clandestine understanding with Lord Gerontius Helmar, the imperial commander of Necromunda. House Delaque provides the master of Necromunda with a constant and invaluable flow of information, acting as his eyes and ears in every corner of the hive, from the most opulent spire palace to the deepest sump hole. This unique relationship grants them a protected status, allowing them to operate with a freedom denied to other houses. However, it also makes them a direct instrument of his will, a tool to be used against any who might challenge his authority, a scalpel to excise political tumors before they can grow. Their own leadership structure is equally opaque, governed by a concealed council known as the Star Chamber, whose members, location, and even methods of communication remain unknown to all outsiders. The power of House Delaque is thus built upon a foundation of secrets, those they gather and sell to maintain their influence, and the ultimate secret they keep to themselves, their own true purpose and nature. To be Delaque is to live a life steeped in paranoia, duplicity, and pervasive secrecy. Their entire culture is dedicated to the acquisition and control of information, and they employ a host of esoteric methods and sinister technologies to achieve their aims. Delaque agents are masters of their craft, silent observers who can blend into any crowd, their true motives forever hidden behind a veneer of quiet competence. Trust is a commodity they trade in, but never possess themselves. Their intelligence-gathering network is aided by an array of unsettling devices that crawl and scuttle through the Hive's hidden spaces. Mechanical constructs known as scuttling whisper thieves crawl through vents and ducts, recording conversations with sensitive audio pickups. Burrowing data serpents tap into unshielded communication lines, siphoning information directly from the data streams of their rivals. Perhaps most sinister of all are the cephalopod specters, writhing masses of mechanical tentacles and gleaming oculi that drift silently through the shadows on whispering suspensors, drinking in their surroundings and relaying multispectral data to their masters. For the Delaque, to be seen is to be compromised. To be known is to be vulnerable. They are the ghosts in the great machine of the Hive, and this culture of absolute secrecy is perfectly mirrored in their terrifyingly effective methods of war. House Delaque does not wage war, it orchestrates outcomes. They shun open battle, preferring misdirection, ambush, and targeted assassination. A conflict with Delaque is not fought on a battlefield with clear front lines, but in darkened corridors, through compromised data networks, and with a single, poisoned blade delivered from the shadows. Their gangers use their long trench coats to conceal their weapons, appearing unarmed and unthreatening until the precise moment they choose to strike. They are masters of the ambush, using their knowledge of the needleways, the labyrinthine network of vents and crawl spaces that honeycomb the Hive, to appear as if from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. Their methods stand in stark contrast to those of their most bitter rivals, House Orlock. The conflict between them is one of philosophy, the transparent grit of the House of Iron versus the opaque duplicity of the House of Shadow, the hammer versus the hidden knife. The Orlocks see the Delaque as cowards and schemers, their methods dishonorable and their nature untrustworthy. The Delaque in turn view the Orlocks as simple-minded thugs, their actions predictable and their strategies easily dismantled through sabotage and misinformation. A war against House Delaque is a war against uncertainty itself, a descent into a labyrinth of lies where every shadow may hide an enemy and every ally may be a traitor. House Van Saar is the undisputed technological powerhouse of Necromunda. They are, by a considerable margin, the wealthiest of the 6 clan houses, their fortunes and martial superiority derived from a single, priceless artifact, a functioning standard template construct. This holy relic of the dark age of technology allows them to manufacture advanced weaponry and war gear with a precision and quality that other houses can only dream of. Their fighters are the best equipped in the Underhive. Their distinctive armored bodysuits and use of advanced plasma and energy weapons are a clear and arrogant display of their technological supremacy. One must wonder at the Adeptus Mechanicus's restraint, though it is likely Lord Helmer's influence and the STC's unique properties that keep the tech priests of Mars at bay. Yet this power comes at a terrible price. The very STC that grants them such wealth and knowledge is also killing them. It leaks a slow-acting, insidious radiation that riddles their bodies with sickness and degenerative afflictions, shortening their lives and making their existence a constant, agonizing battle against their own creations. This central tragedy, this poisoned chalice of progress, has forged a culture that is pragmatic, orderly, and ruthlessly efficient. Every action is calculated, every decision weighed with cold logic, as they desperately seek to master the technology that is both their salvation and their doom. The entire history and identity of House Van Saar are defined by their possession of the STC. It is the alpha and omega of their existence, the source of all their power and all their suffering. This ancient machine, a whisper from a lost golden age, allows them to produce high-tech components and advanced armaments like plasma weaponry that are the envy of every other house and the foundation of their immense wealth. The cost of this knowledge is etched onto their very bodies. The curse of the STC's radiation forces every member of the house to wear a complex, life-sustaining survival suit. This high-tech armor both protects them from the worst of the radiation and prolongs their lives against its degenerative effects. But it is a constant, visible reminder of their slow, agonizing decay. This grim reality has driven them to become masters of bioengineering, desperately seeking a cure for their affliction, or at least a way to mitigate its worst effects. Their expertise in this field was infamously demonstrated in the past, when, alongside the chem matrons of House Escher, their bio-architects played a crucial role in the original gene-smithed creation of the first Goliaths. This willingness to engage in dangerous and forbidden experimentation is a result of their profound desperation. The unique predicament of House Van Saar, being masters of a technology they cannot survive without, but which is also inexorably destroying them, shapes their every action, driving them to pursue progress with a relentless and cold determination that others mistake for arrogance. The society of House Van Saar is one of rigid order, strict discipline, and a pragmatic, almost cold, approach to life. This is not a matter of choice, but of grim necessity. Faced with the certainty of a slow, technologically induced decline, the house has organized itself for maximum efficiency, ensuring that not a moment of their precious, limited time is wasted. Every member has a role, and every role is executed with precision and without sentiment. Emotion is a luxury they cannot afford. Only the cold, hard logic of survival and the relentless pursuit of knowledge matter. Their appearance reflects this culture perfectly. Clad from head to toe in their distinctive, form-fitting survival suits, they present a uniform and technologically superior facade to the other houses. The suits, with their integrated life support systems and data links, serve as both a practical necessity and a symbol of their power, a constant declaration that they are a step above the common, dirty rabble of the Underhive. There is little room for individuality or wasted motion in Saar society. There is only the efficient execution of one's duty in service to the house's survival. This rigid, disciplined culture finds its ultimate expression in their meticulously planned and technologically superior methods of warfare. In battle, House Saar relies on superior technology and advanced weaponry to triumph over brute strength or sheer numbers. Their combat doctrine is one of precision, ranged firepower, and tactical efficiency. A Saar gang does not charge wildly into the fray. They establish overlapping fields of fire, utilize advanced targeting systems, and eliminate their enemies with methodical, calculated volleys of plasma and laser fire. Their need for rigid order, born from the management of their decline, is reflected in their precise, interlocking combat formations. Their fighters are armed with the finest equipment on Necromunda, all produced by their own STC. Plasma guns, las weapons of exceptional quality, and other high-tech armaments give them a significant advantage in any firefight. Their survival suits, while primarily for life support, also function as excellent armor, further increasing their battlefield resilience. This technological superiority has fueled a long and bitter rivalry with House Escher, particularly in their competition for the valuable territories surrounding the Primus spaceport. This conflict is a clash of opposing sciences, the precise advanced artifice of Saar against the unpredictable, exotic alchemy of Escher. House Cawdor is an empire built upon the mountains of refuse and cast-offs generated by the other houses. They are the bone pickers, scrap herders, and midden thieves of Necromunda, a sprawling society of scavengers who find value in what others discard. What binds this vast, impoverished mass together is not wealth, technology, or genecraft, but the unshakable, fanatical faith of the cult of the redemption. To be Cawdor is to believe, with every fiber of one's being, in the doom of the Imperium and the unworthiness of mankind, and to seek salvation through the cleansing fire of a holy crusade against all who are deemed impure. This fervent piety is expressed in their most defining custom, the wearing of masks. A member of House Cawdor hides their face from the sight of infidels, a symbolic act of rejecting the individual self in favor of becoming one with the faithful, faceless mass. The other houses view them with a mixture of pity and contempt, seeing only pathetic scavengers scrabbling in the dirt for rusted trinkets and spoiled corpse starch. This perception is a grave miscalculation. While their bodies may be caked in filth and their weapons cobbled together from scrap, the faith of House Cawdor grants them a purpose and a resilience that is dangerously underestimated. In their righteous fervor, they possess a power that cannot be measured in credits or firepower. For what is a stub round to a man who knows his soul is already saved? The history of House Cawdor is inseparable from that of the cult of the redemption, a splinter sect of the imperial creed that emerged on Necromunda centuries ago. Its demagogues preached a gospel of doom and repentance that resonated deeply with the downtrodden and dispossessed, and nowhere did it find more fertile ground than among the scavengers of Clan Cawdor. In time, the cult completely absorbed the house, its faith becoming the sole organizing principle of their society, their original clan identity all but forgotten. Today, the house is ruled by the Thane of Cawdor, Lord Mormare, who sits upon a throne built from the toil of millions. He views his relative luxury not as a privilege, but as a holy burden he must bear for the good of the faith. To maintain his power, Mormaya masterfully plays the various noble priests and splinter cults against one another, discovering lost religious texts or uncovering miracles that lend validity to one faction over another. He walks a fine line with the more extreme elements of his house, particularly the zealots of the Redemptionist Crusade, while he publicly condemns their outlawed crusades against mutants, heretics, and witches as a threat to Necromunda's stability. He secretly supplies their gangs with weapons and war gear, using them as a deniable tool to smite his enemies. The history of House Cawdor is not one of industrial conquest or territorial expansion, but of a spiritual conquest that has utterly consumed an entire people, transforming them into the militant, scavenging arm of a fanatical faith. The social structure of House Cawdor is a religious hierarchy. At the top are the Word Keepers, who act as both priests and gang leaders, interpreting the holy texts and guiding their flocks into battle with sermons of fire and brimstone. The rank-and-file soldiery is formed by the Brethren, warriors who have risen from the masses to fight for the faith, their bodies adorned with scraps of scripture and holy relics scavenged from the midden. At the bottom are the young bone pickers, who spend their days scavenging through midden heaps and refuse drifts for anything of value to the house. Their industry and territory reflect their place in Necromunda's ecosystem. They are primarily scavengers and recyclers, their enclaves established within the planet's vast middens, abandoned factoria and boneyards. Their greatest holding is within Hive Temenos, the religious bastion of Necromunda, where their fervent piety gives them significant influence, even over the mainstream ministorum. Their patron saint is Call the Fallen, the first pilgrim of the Red Redemption, a legendary figure who wandered the wastes centuries ago, winning countless battles against heretics and monsters. His masked visage now stares down from broken spires and tumbled wrecks, an eternal reminder of their holy cause. This faith is not monolithic, however. Splinter cults constantly emerge, such as the infamous Broken Ones led by Halberg Halfhand. After having his spine shattered by an Orlock bullet and being left for dead, Halberg came to believe that only the truly broken can fully understand the faith. His gang now violently converts others by shattering their bodies so they might join his mangled flock. It is a society that has found profound strength and purpose in an ideology that deems the material world corrupt and worthless, building its foundation upon the very refuse it scorns. The combat doctrine of House Cawdor is that of the Holy Crusade: fervent zeal, overwhelming numbers, and a motley collection of scavenged makeshift weaponry. They march to war not for territory or wealth, but to purge the witch, the mutant, and the heretic in a tide of righteous fury. Their numbers are their greatest weapon, as there is a near limitless supply of faithful ready to die for the cause, believing martyrdom to be the highest honor. Their armaments are often crude, cobbled together from scrap. A common sight is the Cawdor polearm autogun, a reclaimed autogun lashed to the end of a long pole, allowing them to fire a volley before charging into a bloody melee. They have a particular affinity for the cleansing properties of fire, making heavy use of hand flamers and blunderbusses loaded with incendiary purgation shot. Their approach to warfare is best exemplified by the fires of Rothgol, an event where Cawdor gangs, whipped into a frenzy of faith by their Word Keepers, launched a massive assault on House Escher for the sin of using mutant laborers. Though thousands of Cawdor perished in the flames and the hail of toxic rounds, their sheer numbers and fanatical determination succeeded in greatly diminishing Escher's influence in the Hive. For House Cawdor, every battle is an act of worship, and every enemy slain is a prayer answered by the God Emperor. The vast, toxic plains that stretch between Necromunda's hive cities are more than a geographic feature. They are a crucible. The ash wastes are a lawless expanse where the planet's accumulated refuse meets an unforgiving, corrosive environment. This brutal landscape forges the hardiest, most desperate souls on Necromunda, serving as the dangerous connective tissue linking the great hives. It is here, in the howling winds and toxic dust, that fortunes are made in salvaged archaeo relics, and lives are lost to the myriad hazards of the wastes. This frontier is both a barrier and a vital artery. Life on Necromunda persists and even thrives in the most inhospitable of conditions. The environment of the ash wastes is relentlessly hostile. Generations of industrial byproduct, strip mining, and warfare have rendered the planet's surface a polluted wasteland. Noxious vapors rise to form poisonous mists and fogs, which are invariably followed by toxic rainstorms laden with corrosive contaminants. The greatest danger, however, are the ash storms. These wind-blown maelstroms of corrosive particles can strip an unprotected person to the bone in seconds and have been known to destroy entire hives, their ruined spires occasionally revealed in a storm's wake, only to be buried again by the next. Commerce and travel across this blasted landscape are perilous undertakings. Heavily guarded land trains and trade convoys are the primary means of moving goods and people between the hives. House Orlock, the House of Iron, controls the most vital transmotive lines and land routes, its tough and fearless outriders defending the convoys from nomads and rival house agents. To traverse the wastes is to place one's life in the hands of these armed caravans, braving the elements and the predatory nature of the wasteland's inhabitants. Beyond the hive walls, where the toxic winds scour armor and flesh alike, exist populations who have rejected, or been rejected by, the structures that define life within the domes. The ash wastes harbor survivors, prospectors, and exiles, each carving existence from the irradiated desolation that stretches between the hive cities. Here, distant from enforcer patrols and noble scrutiny, different laws prevail. Strength, cunning, and the capacity to endure conditions that would kill hive-born humans within hours determine survival. The nomadic tribes move perpetually across the waste, their routes following ancient paths known only through oral tradition passed across generations. These duster clans form loose alliances of mutual protection, their convoys crossing the most hazardous terrain in armed caravans that bristle with scavenged weapons. They live entirely from what the wastes provide: reclaimed water from atmospheric condensers, protein harvested from rad scorpions and other mutant fauna, shelter in the ruins of forgotten outposts that predate current imperial occupation. Their social structures mirror the harsh environment that shaped them. Leadership belongs to those who prove themselves through action rather than inheritance, though powerful families do emerge when particularly capable leaders produce equally capable offspring. Disputes resolve through formalized combat or clan councils, where elders arbitrate based on precedent and practical necessity. They maintain their own codes of honor, systems of obligation and reciprocity that seem alien to hive dwellers but prove perfectly adapted to wasteland conditions. The origins of House Orlock itself demonstrate that even in this lawless expanse, powerful dynasties can forge themselves from dust and ambition. The progenitors of the current House of Iron emerged from alliance between three dominant duster clans: the Comuns, Cinderjacks, and Medenas. These groups united under shared purpose, conquered the wastes through coordinated military action, and supplanted their rivals to establish dominance over the crucial trade routes connecting the Hive cities. Their transition from nomadic raiders to settled power represents the rare, successful ascension from the wastes into recognized clan house status, a transformation requiring not merely strength, but also political acumen to gain acceptance from established houses and imperial authorities. Most duster clans harbor no such ambitions. They content themselves with survival and the relative freedom the wastes provide. Freedom from the grand horologium's constant measurement, from enforcer patrols, from the crushing hierarchy of Hive society. Yet this freedom comes at brutal cost. Infant mortality runs extraordinarily high. Radiation sickness claims lives regardless of precaution. The mutant creatures that hunt the wastes show no mercy to the weak or unwary. For every individual who thrives in this harsh liberty, dozens perish before reaching adulthood. Scavengers and prospectors operate under different motivation entirely. These individuals brave the wastes not from exile or preference, but from calculated greed, driven by promise of wealth buried in Necromunda's accumulated refuse. The planet's entire economy rests upon the principle of living upon its own past. Millennia of industrial output and consumption have created layers of debris that contain everything from common metals to priceless archaeotech. Prospectors search systematically for ore veins exposed by shifting ash dunes, for crashed ships whose hulls contain valuable alloys, for ruins of facilities built during earlier phases of colonization and subsequently abandoned to the desert. Many operate under sponsorship from established houses. House Orlock particularly employs extensive networks of ash pickers who sift through the irradiated crust for salvage, their findings feeding the house's mining and refining operations. These sponsored prospectors receive equipment, provisions, and protection in exchange for surrendering percentage of their discoveries, an arrangement that allows houses to exploit wasteland resources without committing their own personnel to such hazardous work. Independent prospectors face greater risks but retain full ownership of their findings. A single significant discovery, an intact STC fragment, a cache of Dark Age technology, a vein of rare ore, can establish fortune sufficient to purchase entire hab blocks within the Hive. This possibility draws desperate individuals from the underhive depths, people willing to risk radiation exposure and mutant attacks for chance at wealth that could never be achieved through honest labor within the Hive's rigid hierarchy. Yet the wastes also harbor those who came not by choice, but by expulsion. The Imperial House maintains careful distinction between categories of undesirables, classifications that determine legal status and potential for redemption. An outcast designates one expelled from Necromundan society entirely, wholly excluded from the system through formal declaration. Such individuals have committed offenses severe enough to warrant permanent banishment, yet not quite severe enough to justify execution. Often crimes against the social order itself, such as fomenting worker unrest or challenging noble authority in ways that cannot be overlooked. Outcasts receive neither protection nor recognition under imperial law. They may be killed without legal consequence, They cannot own property, enter into contracts, or appeal to enforcers for any purpose. This status marks them for death, whether immediate through violence or gradual through exposure and starvation. Most perish within weeks of expulsion. Those who survive do so by finding acceptance among wasteland communities or by becoming raiders, preying upon the very society that expelled them. The Outlander classification differs fundamentally. These individuals live beyond the jurisdiction of the Imperial House by choice or circumstance, rather than formal expulsion. They inhabit the deep bad zones or distant ash wastes, operating under their own laws in areas beyond formal governance. While technically outside Imperial authority, Outlanders retain theoretical possibility of reintegration should they choose to submit to Hive law and accept whatever penalties their past activities might incur. Many Outlanders formed communities in regions too remote or hostile for the Imperial House to bother claiming. They established settlements around rare water sources, defensive positions in canyon systems, or resource deposits rich enough to justify permanent habitation despite the dangers. These communities developed their own governance structures, economic systems, and defensive arrangements entirely independent from Hive city control. Some maintain trade relationships with houses like Orlock, exchanging wasteland salvage for manufactured goods. Others prefer complete isolation, viewing any contact with Hive society as contamination of their hard-won independence. The distinction between outcast and outlander matters greatly to those so categorized. Yet from the perspective of Hive authorities, both represent populations beyond effective control. They are the ungoverned, the unmeasured, the humans who exist outside the systems that define Necromundan civilization. Their very existence challenges the totalizing claims of imperial authority, demonstrating that even on a world as thoroughly dominated as Necromunda, spaces remain where different ways of living persist. These ash waste populations, nomadic tribes maintaining ancient traditions, prospectors gambling with their lives for chance at fortune, outcasts and outlanders existing beyond the law, form a third category of Necromundan society alongside the Hive dwellers and noble spire inhabitants. They are neither exploited workers nor distant masters, but rather those who rejected or were rejected by the entire system. Their struggles receive no attention from historians compiling records for the archives. Their deaths appear in no tallies measured by the grand horologium. They simply endure or perish in the toxic wastes, irrelevant to the imperial tithe, yet nonetheless human, nonetheless surviving through means the Hive-born could never comprehend. Yet even the daily struggle of the wastes pales before the singular, contained catastrophe of a fallen Hive. The story of Hive Secundus is a cautionary tale whispered across Necromunda, a chilling reminder of the consequences of hubris and unsanctioned curiosity within the Imperium. It is a lost jewel in the history of the planet, a name now spoken as a curse to frighten children. Its catastrophic fall serves as an indelible scar upon the world's face, and a painful memory for those who rule it, symbolizing the ever-present dangers that lurk when ambition crosses the forbidden lines of technological and biological innovation. In its prime, Hive Secundus was the cultural heart of Necromunda, while Hive Primus was an industrial powerhouse, a monument to production and labor. Secundus was its sophisticated counterpart, a repository of knowledge and cultural achievement. The Hive's downfall was precipitated by the arrival of the Adeptus Mechanicus Tech Priest Biologis Hermiatus. Though officially sanctioned by the Inquisition's Ordo Xenos, to explore the genetics of the tyrannid form known as the Gene Stealer, his research proved disastrously awry. Hermiatus's work, conducted deep within the hive, unleashed a contagion that would forever change the fate of the city and its millions of inhabitants. The result was a cataclysm of unimaginable horror. A unique malstrain gene stealer cult infestation erupted from Hermiatus's labs and spread with terrifying speed, corrupting the populace and overwhelming the hive's defenses from within. As the city fell to the Xenos plague, the Inquisition was forced to intervene. In a desperate act of containment, Necromunda's own planetary defense batteries were turned upon Secundus. The bombardment was so intense that the central spire was toppled, crashing down to form a shattered 10-kilometer-long ruin across the wastes. The once great cultural center was reduced to a smoldering, forsaken hive city. Today, Hive Secundus is a quarantine dead zone, a stain blotted against the planet's surface. The entire region is surrounded by the fortifications of the Dust Wall, an exclusion zone that runs for thousands of kilometers. This quarantine line ensures that nothing living or unliving escapes the radioactive sink that the hive has become. Within the ruins, the malstrain gene stealer cult has been condemned by its isolation. Unable to grow their brood through conventional cycles of infecting new hosts, they are trapped in a self-destructive process that sees ever more extreme and horrific mutation with each generation. It is believed that few, if any, original human survivors now exist within the collapsed hive. The strength of the brood at the time of the city's fall makes it likely that any who were not killed were ultimately absorbed into the twisted arms of the cult. The singular fate of Secundus serves as a grim counterpoint to the varied struggles of Necromunda's other great hives. While the industrial might of Hive Primus and the tragic memory of Hive Secundus dominate Necromunda's narrative, they are but two cities on a world of thousands. The planet's other major hives are distinct entities, each defined by a unique history, industry, or societal structure that shapes the lives of its inhabitants. These sprawling urban fortresses are battlegrounds in their own right, where the great clan houses vie for control and influence. Once a major spaceport whose spire rivaled the height of Hive Primus, Gothrul's Needle is now known for something far more dangerous than its trade capacity, its insidious form of government. The hive is ruled by a council of elected representatives in a functioning democracy. This system, which ensures the fair treatment of its citizens, is considered as dangerous as any Xenos infestation by the feudal lords of Necromunda's other hives. For years, the clan houses have sought to bring down Gothrul's rulers, first by cutting it off from orbital trade and, when that failed, by instigating a long and bloody shadow war to destabilize its unique political structure from within. Hive Mortis bears the scars of a devastating plague that once swept through its population, forcing Lord Helmar to order the hive sealed. For a time, it was a silent tomb. However, the hive has since experienced a macabre resurgence. It now thrives on the industry of death, where mortuary cults harvest the endless supply of corpses from vaults packed with the plague's victims. Gangs fight over these sealed chambers, seeking to plunder the desiccated wealth within. In this citadel of corpses, the matriarchs of House Escher hold significant sway, their clan's interests deeply entwined with the hive's grim commerce. Hive Trasia, a major hive of the Palatine cluster, embodies the spirit of a frontier settlement, defined by its pervasive lawlessness and the constant friction between clan houses. It is a place where a gang's strength is tested daily, exemplified by the establishment of Beat Downtown, an outlaw settlement founded by House Goliath. This fortified bad zone outpost became a center for the Hive's narco-lords and grew so powerful that it successfully repelled multiple assaults by the Palanite enforcers. Yet this lawlessness is constantly challenged by the iron grip of House Orlock, which has long controlled the Hive's vital trade routes and gates, making Trasia a perpetual flashpoint of conflict between the great houses. These disparate hives, each with their own laws and loyalties, are nonetheless subject to a single, overarching authority, enforced not by diplomats, but by the armored fist of the planet's ruler. In the anarchic sprawl of Necromunda's hives, the Palanite enforcers serve a complex and brutal purpose. They are not peacekeepers in any traditional sense. They do not exist to protect the citizenry or eliminate violence. Rather, they are the direct instruments of Lord Helmar's control, an occupying army whose function is to manage conflict, not end it. Their purpose is to maintain the delicate, violent equilibrium upon which the planet's feudal society rests. The Enforcer's core function is to be the mailed fist of House Helmar. Their mission is to crush non-sanctioned violence that threatens the status quo and the flow of industry. The endless proxy wars fought between the gangs of the clan houses are implicitly allowed to continue as they serve the interests of the ruling class. It is only when this violence spills over in a manner that threatens Helmar's control or Necromunda's tithes that the enforcers intervene with lethal force. This focus on maintaining the status quo rather than preventing violence means that from a gang's perspective, the enforcers are not arbiters of justice, but simply another powerful player in the Underhive's brutal ecosystem. The enforcer's authority is absolute and derived directly from Lord Helmar. They have the power to designate any individual or group that breaks Necromunda's laws as an outlaw. Once this designation is made, the subject is marked with a bounty on their head, turning every bounty hunter and rival gang in the Underhive into a potential agent of Helmar's justice. From the irradiated dust of the ash wastes to the sealed-off ruins of fallen hives and the teeming corridors of the Underhive, order on Necromunda is not the absence of conflict, but its careful and brutal management. It is a system of controlled chaos, perpetually balanced on a knife's edge by the unwavering and unforgiving will of House Helmar. For 10 millennia, the Hive World of Necromunda has stood as a bastion of imperial industry. Founded in the lost dark age of technology and brought to compliance by the Imperial Fists Legion, its surface has long since been reduced to plains of industrial ash, its atmosphere a drifting mist of tainted vapor. From this hellish landscape rise the great hives, their countless manufactoria churning out material for the Emperor's endless wars. It is a world perpetually on the brink, its society a fragile hierarchy of clan houses and hive-born masses, simmering with corruption and rebellion. This precarious balance was maintained only by the iron will of one man, Lord Gerontius Helmar, Imperial Commander of Necromunda, whose authority was the keystone holding the arch of Necromundan society together. That ruin came with the tearing of the galaxy. The Great Rift, known in local parlance as the Cicatrix Maledictum, ripped open the heavens above Necromunda, and the planet was immediately plunged into darkness. The baleful energies of the warp, snuffed out the guiding light of the Astronomicon and cast a psychic pall over the entire world, an event that would be recorded as the Great Darkness. This was no mere absence of light. It was a catalyst for total systemic collapse. The ancient thermal cores that served as the primary heat sinks for the great hives sputtered and failed, their arcane mechanisms unable to function under the warp-choked skies. Across the planet, hive cities went dark and cold. Power failed on a scale never before witnessed, silencing the ceaseless roar of industry and plunging entire Hab districts into freezing blackness. Anarchy was the immediate and bloody result. Ancient rivalries and suppressed hatreds erupted into open warfare as clan houses, guilders, and countless underhive factions battled for control of dwindling resources in the sudden, desperate cold. From the Palatine spire of Hive Primus to the deepest sump, the rule of Lord Helmar was shattered by a tidal wave of violence. Yet amidst this widespread chaos, a single, targeted blow was about to be struck at the very heart of the Imperial House. For 7 millennia, the name Helmar has been synonymous with absolute authority on Necromunda, a dynasty whose records stretch back to M34, predating most reliable administratum archives for the sector. As the 137th Lord of Necromunda, Gerontius Helmar was more than a mere planetary governor. He was the living embodiment of the Imperial House. Yet there is a grim irony in this dynastic permanence, for its founder, Martek Helmire, was a street tough from the drudging Habs of Hive Primus. To strike at Gerontius was not merely an act of assassination. It was a direct assault upon the foundations of imperial rule itself, an act of rebellion so audacious as to be almost unthinkable. In the height of the chaos wrought by the Great Darkness, the unthinkable happened. A specialized murder cyborg, a sophisticated and utterly lethal killing machine, breached the sanctum of Lord Helmar. The attack was as swift as it was brutal, the sophistication of the assassin indicating a plot of immense resources and unparalleled audacity. The intent was clear: to decapitate the Imperial House and throw the world into a succession crisis from which it might never recover. The attempt failed, but only just. Lord Helmar was not killed outright, but he was left mortally wounded, his body broken and his life draining away. In a desperate act of preservation, his most loyal servants sealed his dying form within a stasis casket. This arcane device would halt the moment of his death, preserving the Lord of Necromunda in a timeless limbo between life and oblivion, in the hope that a cure for his wounds might one day be found. This final desperate measure, meant to save the patriarch of Necromunda, instead created the very power vacuum the assassins had intended. Lord Helmar was gone, and his throne was empty. The incapacitation of Lord Helmar plunged the Imperial House into a legitimacy crisis of unprecedented scale. For millennia, the line of succession had been absolute, but Lord Helmar had no single designated heir. The political consequences were immediate and catastrophic, shattering the unity of the ruling class and leaving the highest authority on the planet dangerously fractured. The succession vacuum was a maelstrom of ambition and intrigue. Lord Helmar had sired numerous children, both true-born and illegitimate, and not one of them possessed a clear and unassailable right to the throne. The Palatine spire became a nest of vipers, as dozens of claimants, each with their own faction of supporters, began to plot and scheme for control. The court of the Imperial House, once a bastion of rigid order, fractured into a volatile collection of competing interests. From this chaos, a fundamental political schism emerged. On one side stood the beleaguered Helmar loyalists, nobles and functionaries such as Lady Hyra, who desperately sought to maintain the status quo and the sanctity of the imperial house. Opposing them were a multitude of factions who saw in the empty throne a once-in-a-millennium opportunity. Noble houses, guilder interests, and ambitious clan house leaders who had long chafed under Helmar's rule now openly plotted for a complete regime change. Into this fractured political landscape stepped the first major figure to capitalize on the chaos, the so-called rebel queen, Lady Credo. Out of the planet-wide anarchy, an organized rebellion began to take shape, its flames fanned by the ambition of those who sought to unseat the Helmar dynasty. This was not merely the opportunistic violence of the Underhive, but a calculated political insurrection. At its head was Lady Credo, a figurehead for long-suppressed discontent, who galvanized the disparate anti-Helmar factions into a cohesive force. Proclaiming herself the rebel queen, Lady Credo's stated aim was nothing less than the installation of new leadership to rule all of Necromunda. She was no mere rabble-rouser, but a rallying point for powerful and influential forces who saw their moment to strike. Her rebellion was fueled by a formidable coalition. Key among her supporters were pro-rebellion elements from the matriarchal and politically aggressive House Escher, an ancient clan whose mastery of chemistry is matched only by its martial pride. House Escher has long harbored deep grievances against the established order, stemming from the historical flesh curse that withered their menfolk and forced their warrior women to secure the house's survival. They were joined by other powerful noble houses, each eager to seize the opportunity to dismantle the 7 millennia-long reign of the Helmar family. Lady Credo united these factions under a single banner, turning simmering discontent into a raging fire of open war against the loyalists. But while the rebel queen lit the spark of open rebellion, another, more mysterious power was poised to claim the resulting inferno for itself. The darkness and instability that gripped Necromunda created fertile ground for radical movements and ancient prophecies to take root. In the cold and lightless depths of the hives, whispers turned to sermons, and a prophetic movement led by a figure known only as the Prophet gained momentum, preaching of a new order and a leader who would rise from the ashes of the old. The prophecies reached their dramatic conclusion with the emergence of an impossible figure, Ozostium Aranthus. Appearing as a mysterious and imposing techno-giant, Aranthus made a claim that shook the foundations of Necromundan history. He declared himself the heir of the lost noble house Aranthus, the lost house of legend, believed to have been utterly destroyed by plague centuries prior. For generations it has remained fashionable amongst underhivers and nobles alike to claim lineage from the defunct house, a common boast of distinction. In the chaos of the Great Darkness, this tiresome claim suddenly and terrifyingly proved to be true. The appearance of a living heir to this defunct house sent shockwaves through the planet's political structure. Aranthus proved to be more than just a claimant. He was a conqueror. With stunning speed and military precision, he seized control of the Palatine Spire, the very seat of imperial power. The majority of the clan houses, seeing the shift in power and swayed by the influence of Lady Credo, ultimately threw their support behind the combined faction of the rebel queen and the techno-giant from the past. A new power structure was thus consolidated in Hive Primus, with the rebel alliance of Credo and Aranthus in firm control. For the defeated Helmar loyalists, their only option was to flee. The coup in Hive Primus was a success, but it left Necromunda a world fractured and divided. The triumphant regime of Aranthus and Cawdor held the seat of power, but the war was far from over. The desperate remnants of the Helmar loyalists, though defeated in the capital, had escaped to regroup and plot their revenge. In the chaos of Aranthus's takeover, a crucial and potent mystery was born. The stasis casket containing the dying form of Lord Gerontius Helmar had gone missing. Whether it was stolen by loyalists, hidden by the rebels, or simply lost in the pandemonium of the coup, its absence left a question mark hanging over the future of the Helmar dynasty and provided a potential rallying point for any who would seek to restore the old order. The surviving Helmar loyalists, led by steadfast figures such as Lady Hyra, made a desperate flight from Hive Primus. Their destination was a grim and perilous sanctuary, the ruins of Hive Secundus. Once the second jewel of Necromunda, Hive Secundus is now a forsaken, smouldering ruin, a painful memory of catastrophic failure, its central spire toppled and its depths infested after a disastrous gene stealer outbreak over a century ago. It is a place few would choose to willingly go, and that even fewer would return from alive. Their motivation for choosing such a dangerous refuge was one of sheer desperation. The Loyalists believed that ancient and powerful archaeotech lies buried within the protected vaults of the fallen Hive. In this lost technology, they see their last, desperate hope, a means to assemble a force capable of challenging the new regime and regaining control of Necromunda. Meanwhile, the wider Imperium remained characteristically indifferent to the change in leadership. The Adeptus Terra is concerned with one thing above all: the timely payment of the planetary tithe. Under the new regime and its powerful Psyker governor, the vital flow of manufactured goods from Necromunda has continued uninterrupted. As long as the tithes are met, the powers on distant Terra care little for who sits on the throne of the imperial house. Thus, a new and bloody chapter for Necromunda has begun. The world is divided, its rightful patriarch is missing, and two rival powers now gather their strength in the ruins of the old order, making a future of total war all but certain. It is a common folly to perceive Necromunda as a mere city. In truth, it is a vast and terrible artifice, a paradoxical engine of oppression, meticulously engineered to serve the insatiable demands of the wider Imperium. This brutal society, which appears to the uninitiated as a maelstrom of anarchy, is in fact a carefully managed ecosystem of violence. It is a system that functions not in spite of its endless conflict, but because of it, an engine fueled by its own detritus. For Necromunda lives on the accumulated wastes of its past, a world that scavenges, reclaims, and recycles not only metal and material, but the very lives and ambitions of its people. In this grand, grim mechanism, Necromunda stands as one of the Imperium's most reliable instruments. Its planetary governor is the master engineer, overseeing a design of exquisite cruelty. The great clan houses are the primary gears of this machine, calibrated to grind against one another in endless proxy wars, their feuds and bloodshed serving as the driving force of the planet's industry. The merchant guilds, in turn, are the viscous oil that lubricates these warring components, ensuring that while the gears clash and shear, they never seize completely and bring the entire apparatus to a catastrophic halt. The purpose of this grand, grinding tragedy is elegantly simple in its brutality: to feed the Imperium's unquenchable hunger for for base manufactured goods. This engineered chaos is a savage but effective solution to the logistical nightmare of the Adeptus Terra, making Necromunda a horrifyingly successful asset precisely because of its savagery. This exploitation cascades from the needle-thin spires, where nobles bleed the clan houses, down through the clan industries that bleed their workers, and into the underhive where gangs bleed the local populace, until at the very bottom, in the sump, there is nothing left to exploit but the grime itself. This engineered system, however, is more than a mere planetary administration. It is a stark and unforgiving reflection of the human condition itself. The Hive City, with its vertical strata of power and squalor, is a physical manifestation of human civilization's dual nature, its grandeur possible only because of the misery below. The Underhive is not merely a place of squalor, but a necessary pressure valve, a dumping ground which absorbs the failures, waste, and inconvenient populations, thus preserving the relative order above. From the highest spires to the deepest sump, these colossal structures encapsulate humanity's greatest triumphs and its most profound failings. The spires were once the pride of all mankind, towering citadels of unfathomable construction that reached for skies they would eventually poison with noxious vapors and toxic rain. Now they stand as monuments to a forgotten glory, their theoretical splendor a stark contrast to the corrosive atmosphere and poisonous mists of the underbelly below. Beneath them lie the labyrinthine underbellies of the Underhive, a lawless no-man's land where an individual might forge a new beginning or meet a sudden, violent end. Within these iron confines, one finds every facet of the human spirit, twisted and magnified by the pressures of hive life. The very walls seem to retell age-old stories of glory, bitter sadness, unquenchable ambition, unthinkable immoral horror, sacrifice and compassion. Here in the darkness, the Orlock drive for territory festers into bloody betrayal, while the Cawdor's piety curdles into redemptionist fanaticism that would burn a hab block to cleanse a single perceived sin. And yet the human spirit endures. Tormented and twisted, it has survived, and even thrived, amongst the iron weeds of the ash-cursed planet. This is the essential, terrifying truth of our species, that even in the most crushing darkness, stripped of hope and dignity, humanity does not merely endure. It adapts, it festers, it fights, and in its blind, ferocious vitality, it perpetuates the very cycle of its own damnation. For 10,000 years, this precarious balance of oppression and resilience has defined Necromunda. But that balance, held for so long in the iron grip of House Helmar, is now on the verge of shattering. If you're still listening, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Necromunda is really the perfect example to illustrate why I fell in love with 40K. Every stone upturned reveals an entire new universe to explore with its own rich lore and stories. I'd be happy to dive deeper into a more detailed subject if it piques your interest. Just let me know below. As always, I am incredibly thankful for your audience. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like to support me directly, you can do so via my Ko-fi page, either with a small donation or purchasing some of my artworks. Please also consider using the channel affiliate links if you are planning to make a hobby purchase. Thanks again, and I wish you a good day or a good night.